Hey everybody, I'm back. It's Financial Fridays, and I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. My technology failed me today. I had my computer all set up, and right at the minute that I was ready to go live, it decided to restart itself. So I'm back. Happy New Year. Today we are going to talk about tax intercepts for student loan defaulted debt. And probably the biggest reason that I have heard over the time that I've owned this company from people about why they get behind on filing their taxes is because they know that their taxes are going to be intercepted because of a student loan default. So I figured today we would take time to talk about intercepts and student loan defaults. They are fixable, they are curable, and you can get back on track for filing your taxes on time if you have a problem with your student loans. So first, let's just talk about what an intercept is. An intercept is a powerful tool by the government to force you to comply with the terms and conditions of your student loan repayment obligation. So you're never talking about an intercept unless you have defaulted on your underlying obligation to pay on your student loan. And if you default on that obligation, then an intercept is one of the tools that the government can use to force you to live up to your obligation to repay. So how does an intercept work? An intercept begins in the Department of Education. The Department of Education is the holder of student loan debt, and they are the ones who have the obligation to say to the tax collecting arm of the government, which is the Department of Treasury, we have a problem. There's somebody who owes us money and they are not paying us. And what the Department of Education gets to say is, if they have any money that comes through your hands, please intercept that money and then give it to our agent. So the money rarely goes directly to the Department of Education directly. It usually goes to the collection agency that has been authorized on behalf of the Department of Education to collect the loan that is overdue. So we'll go back to what we're talking about. We have the Department of Education initiating a process, going over to the Department of Treasury saying, this person owes education money. If you get any money, Treasury, that is owed to this person, please intercept it and give it to us to apply it to their debt. So that's basically how the process works. The collection arm of the Department of Treasury is the IRS. So the defaulted note, or the information that education is owed money by a given borrower, is then given to the IRS. And the IRS, either through its own files and sometimes in coordination with the state where you live, will intercept your federal tax return, and they can also intercept your state tax return in states where they have been authorized to do so. So if you owe money on your student loan, you can't hide in plain sight. Your student loan is identified by your Social Security number. Your tax return is identified by your Social Security number. So those two pieces of information will tie together perfectly to identify you to the government as a person who has money in the government's possession, and another part of the government is owed money by you, and the government will put those two pieces together and begin to retire the debt that you owe to the government. So the most important part of knowing about this is, if you have a defaulted debt, the debt can be sent by the Department of Education over to the IRS, and the IRS will then act as a collection agent. So upon hearing that, most people are they certainly question, well, I know I'm behind on my student loan debt. Can I find out whether or not there is an offset against me? And yes, you can find out if there is an offset against you. You can call the IRS. We will post that phone number on the forum section of our website. Our website is www.studentloan411.co. That's .co. And in the forum, we published 3 articles today about tax debt intercepts for student loan debt. So one of the articles is just about, what is an intercept and what does it mean? The second article is, how do you challenge that, right? So you do have defenses that you can employ if you have your taxes intercept. And so we published an article about that. The third piece of information is, what if you're married to somebody who has student loan debt? And you might have student loan debt, but yours is being paid, but they didn't pay theirs. And you filed a joint tax return and the government took the whole tax return. What do you do? So we also filed an article today about being an innocent spouse and what can you do if the government intercepts the tax return because of something that your spouse did. And we also point you to a couple of IRS publications that will help you with that as well. But now, since I talked about the article that we published, let's talk a little bit about the information that's in the article. So you are permitted to challenge an intercept order. Now, I don't want to fool you and make you think that these are easy things to do. The process isn't so hard, but actually getting money back if you have entered into the intercept process is pretty hard. So it's really kind of important to go on the website and find out the information of finding out if you have an intercept against you. And if you do, then you can do something about it so that you're in a process that will stop you from having your student loans intercepted in the first place. But I wanted to tell you specifically about what you can do in a challenge. So the process of disputing whether or not you owe the money that the IRS intercepted from your tax return is called a challenge. And in the challenge, there are specific reasons that you can challenge the intercept. So obviously, if you can prove that you paid the debt, that's one reason that you can challenge the intercept. Another reason is if you've entered into loan rehabilitation, you can challenge the intercept. If you went to bankruptcy court and had the loan discharged in bankruptcy, that's another reason that you can challenge the intercept. If you're totally disabled, you can challenge the intercept on that basis. And if you believe that the debt is not collectible for some legitimate reason, like perhaps somebody committed identity theft on you and took out a student loan in your name, that's another reason that you can challenge the debt. So there are a few reasons that you can challenge an intercept. And on the website, in the article that talks about the challenge, we put a link to the resource on the IRS website that will help you with that. So the third thing that I wanted to talk to you about today in this process is, well, what if you're married to somebody who has a student loan debt and you file a joint tax return and your tax return gets intercepted, not because of anything that you did, but because of something that your spouse did? Well, so there is something that the innocent spouse can do, and it's called injured spouse relief. And in the third article that we published in the forum on our website today, we did include an article about that and a link to the IRS information on injured spouses. But basically, if you file a joint tax return and one of the two spouses in the tax return is subject to an order of interception, the IRS will seize the entire tax return. So they won't try to figure out what part is your part and what part is your other spouse's part. They just take the whole thing. But if you are the injured spouse who gets injured by that kind of activity, you can go back to the IRS and you can prove that it wasn't you, it was your spouse, that you filed a joint tax return, that your part of the tax return got intercepted along with your spouse's tax return, and that you're asking for return of your part as the injured spouse. So once again, as I said earlier, you can go to our website and you can get a link to that resource. So as the injured spouse, you do not have to be subject to the order of intercept, and you can get your part back. And the part that is available for getting back is if you file taxes on wages, or if there is a refundable credit that was coming back to you, you can get that part back too. So today we're tackling a subject that nobody wants to talk about, and that is taxes and tax returns and student loans. So we know that this is an important topic. We know that this is a topic that will cause people other pain in their lives, like not filing their tax returns on time because they don't want to have their taxes intercepted. But we want you to know that there are things that you can do, that you can either enter into a rehabilitation process. The rehabilitation process lasts for 9 months. And what happens in the rehabilitation process is you are permitted to make an agreement with the government that you are now going to start making all of your loan payments on time. The payment that you will get to repay during rehabilitation is the same payment that you would get if you entered into income-driven repayment, except if in income-driven repayment, you would get a zero payment. The minimum payment that you can make in rehabilitation is $5. So you will have to make at least a $5 payment. One of the frequently asked questions is, well, if it's only $5 a month and I have to do this for 9 months, can't I just write them a check for $45 and be done with it? The answer to that question is no, you can't, because the whole process of rehabilitation is about ensuring that you understand your obligation to make the monthly payments on time. And by going through a process where you have to pay every month, even if you're only paying $5 a month, they want you to go through the process of doing that once a month, every month. So you can enter rehabilitation, and if you enter rehabilitation, then that's one way to get the intercept taken away. The other way that you can get the intercept taken away is if you are disabled. And if you are disabled, there is a discharge process that you can engage in that will get rid of your student loan, because you're not obligated to pay if you are totally disabled. And but there's only one loan servicer that is authorized to process those. So you would have to go over to NELDET to have them process your paperwork. And of course, Student Loan 411 is your partner in information for what you can do about any problem that you're having with your student loans, whether your student loan payments are too high, whether or not you don't know whether or not you're in the right program, whether you have a problem like tax intercept, or whether or not you are disabled. And the last thing I'm going to say, because I'm coming to the end of my 15-minute segment, is I am really looking forward to the year 2018. In 2018, Student Loan 411 is doing something really interesting, and that is that we are bringing the circle, full circle, on student loan debt. So this year, we are going to start engaging in some additional services. For the 5 years that we've been in business, we have been about the business of a pound of cure. And that is, you've gotten a student loan debt and it's a problem and you need help getting rid of it. So we're going to continue to do that work. But in 2018, we're also going to do some additional work, which is what we call an ounce of prevention. And what an ounce of prevention is all about is, if you don't have the student loan debt already, meaning that you haven't entered school or you're thinking about going back to school to get a new degree, then we think we've come up with some really smart ways of looking at how do you go about pursuing that additional certification or credential and minimizing the debt. So the new services that we're going to be offering are all around that, about making sure that if you're going to school, that you have your eyes on the prize of gainful employment on the other side, and that what you pay for your education is in line with what it is that you expect to earn. So I'm really looking forward to 2018. I'm very excited about these prospects, and I look forward to speaking with you every Friday on Financial Fridays as we talk about some issue or topic of the day as it relates to student loans. So I thank you again for listening. I look forward to seeing you again next week. And I'm sorry to have been a little bit late today, but you know, when technology fails you, it's terrible. So have a great weekend and looking forward to seeing you next week.